5th of November 2022, one man enters the UFC octagon on the main card of a standard fight night. But unlike most warriors, Darek Minner was never there to win.
Oh, he hurt himself. Smith steps in.
On the surface, an unfortunate injury, but this result was a certainty, not a surprise, all orchestrated by one man with a sinister goal in mind.
The odds for Darek Minner's opponent spiked crazily.
That line movement has now prompted several investigations from different jurisdictions.
Is what Krause would do. He had some rich friends. He'd be like, hey, take this, do this, bet on this guy.
James Krause's license revoked in Nevada. He's been banned from all UFC events.
They're gonna go to fucking federal prison. Federal fucking prison.
So how exactly did one fight unearth a betting empire that changed the sport forever? This is the story of the biggest cheating scandal in UFC history. The man at the center of it all, James Krause. Well connected in the mixed martial arts world and once well respected as an admirable UFC fighter, he at first sought his fortune through the way of the fist. Hard fought through 2 stints in the promotion, Krause's overall tenure was one of relative success, totaling a record of 9-4 against the welterweight masses. Competing under the UFC's banner is a level that most will never reach, but the cold truth remains that in this game, only the champions can ever repay their debt of blood. Krause, for all of his successes as a contender, strive for more on the monetary and mental fronts, and rightfully so when the discourse around fighter pay remains as prevalent as ever. Eventually, fulfillment would be no longer chasing those 10.5 pounds of gold and the boons that came with, but guiding others to that same treasure instead.
I am done with the sport. I'm at peace with it. I have no desire to fight again. I really don't. My desires, my fulfillment, I've now shifted towards coaching. I do not plan on ever fighting in the UFC ever again.
I'm feeling different. I'm happy with the decision. I'm happy with what I've done. It's a clear-cut transition for me to coaching full-time now, which I've been doing for a long time anyway.
You cannot fight at the top level with only one foot inside of the cage, and for Krause it was an ultimatum. Coaching was an avenue he had explored whilst under contract with the UFC, but after many hard-fought years he would take the leap full-time. Helming Glory MMA out of Missouri, his expertise would see many fighters make great strides into the UFC's banner, most infamously the assassin baby, Brandon Moreno.
What makes James such a great coach?
I mean, the guy is very passionate. He put a lot of passion on the work, and just enough passion, you know. He's very smart, and he's always watching fights. He's a hard worker as me, and you know, have people around you who want the same goals as you. That's magic. You can make magic with that.
You see him basically every weekend at the UFC Apex or this UFC event, that UFC event. He's got so many fighters on the roster. He's a really good coach.
That's all Krause. I didn't pick up on the reads. I just do what I'm told, and if I do what he tells me, I'm going to win. I know that.
The only reason that I stay where I am now in Lee Summit, Missouri is because of James, because I believe that he is the best or one of the best MMA coaches today.
Such words from a UFC champion and other alumni was proof enough of Krause's success and savviness as a coach. But just as he had once lost the spark for fighting, eventually the same fate would be suffered for this new role. For James, deep within was a man rife with greed, hungry for riches. Motivated now by money, not fighting mastery, Krause would apply his sage-like knowledge of the sport to the realm of gambling.
James Krause was also someone who ran his own Discord. He charged people to bet with him, to use his picks, and he had his own betting podcast.
He said he made more money, hands down, easily betting on fight.
That's crazy to me.
I do pretty well. I make more money gambling on MMA than I do anything else.
Come on, more than even coaching?
Oh God, I don't make shit on coaching. I take over people's accounts and play for them. I post the losses.
I actually hit him up before the fights last night and threw 10,000 on him. He gave me 100% picks. Yeah.
And just curious, like the Moreno fight, like fights that you're involved in, will you bet on those too?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
sometimes. Yeah.
By 2022, James had built his betting empire alongside his responsibilities as a coach, financially surpassing many of the UFC's top warriors without throwing a punch. But just as the fighters within the cage constantly strive for greatness, gold and riches in a never-ending chase, Krause as a betting man was the very same. Nothing was ever enough, and that mindset would inevitably be his end. Aiming to dance with the devil and come out the other side a rich man, Krause would orchestrate a plan, one that would unknowingly shape the sport forevermore in its fallout. Enter Darek Minner, a martial artist forged inside Glory MMA's very walls. A man who, like any other, dreamt of gold and an esteemed fighting legacy. But his grand purpose was never to be a UFC champion. Willingly or not, he would serve as a pawn on a chessboard come an unassuming fight night. sustaining a severe injury to the leg in the build-up to his next fight. It was a fact that remained secret to everyone but his coach. Doomed to fail, doomed to lose. And with that newfound knowledge, Krause knew exactly where to put his and his customers' money.
Oh, he hurt himself. Smith steps in.
Krause and his many acolytes would make their riches, yes. The first round loss odds making for a sizable betting line. But its unusual movement just hours before the bout had pointed to something nefarious.
The odds for Darrick Minner's opponent spiked crazily.
Norenbeka is hanging around minus 200 all week, and then it just falls off a cliff leading up to the fight. As you can see the dates, it falls off a cliff. Same thing with Darrick Minner. His line at the very end just skyrockets.
The combination of that line movement, Phil, and how that fight looked, where it looked like it was an injury that perhaps people knew about, has now prompted several investigations from different jurisdictions.
James's prolific background in the betting world and affiliation with Minner would paint him rightfully as the prime suspect. But equally, his very fighter and a select few others out of Glory MMA would find themselves in the crosshairs as the news broke.
They just called him last night and said that he was unable to corner me. I'm sure you guys will be finding out what's going on soon enough, as will I.
The massive news to drop: Darrick Minner cut from the UFC. James Krause's license revoked in Nevada. He's been banned from all UFC events. And the big news: anybody affiliated with in the gym at which he coaches, Glory MMA, not allowed to compete in the UFC.
Because I think he trains like 6 or 7 people that are in the UFC, and now they said if you train with James Krause, you cannot compete in the UFC.
When did you start to think that, like, okay, he might not be able to coach me?
The day before, he called me and we had a deep conversation. He told me about the situation and everything. And that's it, man. I mean, I can't lie to you. It was a little bit disappointment and I was a little bit sad.
It sucks because I don't think he was intentionally setting up fights. Hey, go out there, lose. We'll go out there, win. I think he was taking the knowledge he had from the specific fighters and telling his fans, his people, hey, this is what I think.
You go out there and you put that stuff in a public venue like that with a very large platform, and you're essentially kind of bragging about it.
I make more money gambling on MMA than I do anything else.
It's going to raise some red flags.
Whilst Krause's actions had inadvertently affected those coached under his tutelage, there was another fighter who had his part to play in the scandal. Jeff Molina, one implicated directly, a promising flyweight who had proven to have profited off of Minner's loss.
October 17th, the UFC releases this memo to all the fighters, all the managers, anyone's associated with a fighter regarding betting on UFC fights.
I made the mistake saying, hey, how serious are these guys? How serious is this? You know, as a way of me making money on the side. Turns out, Ariel, they were very serious.
Jeff Molina is now officially suspended because of substantial involvement in James Krause's gambling scandal. Wow. Okay. The thing that I am nearly certain is the case in terms of Jeff Molina's involvement is where Krause was referring people to a specific betting site and then getting commission based off that, okay?
The whole situation surrounding it couldn't have gone fucking worse. And making it look like I was this like criminal master. I was a 23-year-old kid and I was this criminal mastermind wagering millions and millions of dollars and set up a fixed fight. And it's fucking ridiculous, Ariel. Like,
with Pandora's box now fully open, the full reality of Krause's transgressions would finally come to light. This betting heist was not just a one-off mistake, but a small representation of the many shady dealings James had been involved with for years.
Because I've seen, like it's been rumored that the FBI is involved. Has it gone up to that level?
There's an investigation going on. I can't talk about any of this stuff.
James Krause, the suspended MMA coach who's at the center of an ongoing betting scandal in the UFC, has acted as an offshore bookmaking agent for multiple years. That's according to sources that have bet with him.
James Krause was starting to develop a reputation as a picks master, if you will. He was hosting a podcast for ESPN MMA called Best Bets.
Is what Krause would do is, you know, he had some rich friends and then he'd be like, hey, take this, do this, bet on this guy.
And how huge of a fucking, it just came in out of nowhere, the betting, right? It was so obvious that they had to investigate it.
Did he shine a light on an issue within the sport on the radar of the FBI? Do they start pulling on threads that lead to other things? That's where this gets even more dangerous.
A story that started solely within those 8 cage walls had now expanded far beyond the realm of MMA. Bigger players involved, rumors of FBI investigations, and every one of Krause's past moves analyzed with a close eye. It wasn't just betting tips in a Discord. Krause had been acting as a middleman between offshore sportsbooks and bettors, building an empire far bigger than anyone had realized. He was at the center of it all, and Dana White, with this newfound knowledge, made sure his feelings were heard.
Well, what's the UFC going to do? We let these guys know not to bet on fights. Do you know what the outcome of this is? They're gonna go to fucking federal prison. Federal fucking prison.
Whilst Krause's actions were despicable and undermined the very integrity of our sport, they were perhaps a necessary evil in the grander scale. For if there ever was a silver lining, it's that this saga had catalyzed the change in the UFC's approach to rule enforcement. For a company that had long prided itself on being ahead of the curve, trailblazers in many facets, in this area Dana White and co. had long lagged behind. New rules are added, following the path set by most sports globally. No athletes, coaches, nor close family of either were ever allowed to bet on events again. But what of the man at the center of it all? Nearly 3 years on from that incident, scarcely a word has been uttered from Krause despite the drama. For legal reasons, maybe. Or perhaps to simply brush it all under the rug. Regardless of those motives, Krause had burnt every bridge within the realm of MMA. His gym under new ownership, now a shadow of its former self. Its premier fighters in Grant Dawson and the aforementioned Moreno now charting their courses elsewhere. With the latter completing his journey to unify the belt under new tutelage, Krause had truly lost it all. And as for him, the only verifiable information I could find was a new business endeavor in the real estate world. Just as shady as his previous efforts, evidently those poisonous characteristics remained within James forevermore. For this whole saga, he was the fall guy, a symptom of a larger issue. And in a game where the lines of morality are ever blurring, microphone showmen overstepping their mark.
No, I'm bringing you to 7th layer. Hell, we'll say what's up to your dad while we're there.
Fighters with grave transgressions outside of the cage.
The 34-year-old has been charged with misdemeanor battery, domestic violence, and damaging a vehicle.
I hate you.
UFC star Tony Ferguson has been arrested for DUI after a car crash in Hollywood.
Conor McGregor was found civilly liable for sexual assault of Nikita Hand.
Each and every one of these fighters given little to no punishment by the UFC or the law. Some even still now with the Sports Summit. With that in mind, it truly begs the question, for all of James's involvement in this betting scandal, did he deserve to lose it all?
So this wasn't as big as it was being sort of made out to be.
To make a whole bunch of other fighters suffer. I'm not saying that James Krause didn't tell someone that his fighter was injured, but there's nothing wrong with him doing that.
Because I think the UFC was founded kind of on that principle of like, hey, if you screw up, you get your punishment. And, you know, people have come back from running over pregnant lady while high on coke, and I really do think that the whole MMA community as a whole owes him an apology. Fucking stand-up guy. I'm forever thankful for all the lessons he ever taught me, and it sucks that his legacy got tarnished.